It's my pleasure to be here with all of you digitally to celebrate this University of Toronto China Educational Forum. I know it's the third time that our students have organized this forum. I was able to be present for the first two, and I'm so delighted to see it's taking place again with universities from different parts of China, about 8 or 10 university students in education joining together with University of Toronto and others in Canada. And it's a wonderful time just to celebrate our shared vision of the future. And I think the topics that you are covering are so important today. Inclusive education, holistic education, immigrants and education, AI and education, all topics of great interest and concern, where I'm sure there's a great deal that we can learn from one another across our cultures, experiences, and history. And I just want to share a little story this morning that has really given me a lot to think about. Many of you know that I had been living in China for many years and also studying Chinese education over a very long period of time. And fairly recently, I was invited by some musical scholars in Switzerland to join a conference where they were trying to develop a deeper understanding on the Western side, particularly the European side, of Chinese music and Chinese arts and cultures. And so one of the things I'm going to give you today is a new book. It's a digital book. It's open access with a set of very interesting papers written by both Chinese and European scholars about the mutual learning and comparison in music education. I'm not an expert in music education, but I loved reading the book by Howard Gardner, which I think many of you have heard of. It's called To Open Minds. It was published in 1989, where he explains his theory of multiple intelligences, that children have intelligence in 7 or 8 different areas, not just mathematics, technology, logical areas, but in intercultural, spatial education, linguistics, musical, the body, all different fields and areas. Intelligence can be found, and every child has intelligence. The teacher's role is to figure out how to stimulate them to move from what may be the most easy and natural area of learning to other areas of learning. I think this has been a hugely influential theory in Western education, but I wonder how many people know that Howard Gardner developed this theory in the 1980s while he was spending lengthy periods of time in China, observing both arts and music education. He tells about it in his book, To Open Minds, his first visit, 1980, then 82, and then in the middle 80s, he actually lived there for 3 years. He traveled around, he observed both music education and also arts education. He was particularly impressed at how young children in China learned how to use the brush to write calligraphy. And of course, calligraphy can also be watercolor painting. The other point that I think is very, very interesting, many teachers of music in the West notice that Chinese young people tend to have perfect pitch when they're learning music. Where did this come from? One of the thoughts might be that because Chinese dialects like Cantonese, Mandarin, and many others require careful tonal structure. Cantonese has 7 voice tones, and a young child as early as 2 years old will be able to master those voice tones and differentiate between different tones in communicating. So the influence of the language and culture in China on education, a very interesting and important topic from which we in the West still have much to learn. But I think it's fascinating to realize that this influential theory was actually developed while Professor Howard Gardner was living in China for lengthy periods of time and learning and observing. So I look at your conference, UTCES, as a wonderful opportunity for both sides to listen, observe, find out what are the areas where we can learn more deeply from one another. I think this is a very, very important, particularly at the present time. I notice the topic mentions the topic of the conference, the current global environment. It's a difficult global environment. A lot of geopolitical conflicts that create stress and anxiety for all of us. But how important in this difficult time that we should sit together, we should learn from one another, we should learn the deep-rooted spiritual, cultural lessons that we can learn from the history and experience of education in the East Asian field and in China particularly, Greater China as well as in North America and Europe. So I'm just thrilled that you are all together again. I'm regretful that I can't be with you in person this time, but I will follow your conference with great interest, and I want to express my congratulations to the graduate students and alumni who have worked so hard to bring people together and to organize and to hold together the University of Toronto China Education Forum community. I'll just say that much and wish you a wonderful conference over the next few days. Thank you.